we got to talk about COVID-19. Forget about AI for a second. When that hit, what was that like? How did things shake out over the first 30, 60 days? I mean, we're all getting groceries just fine now, but I feel like at the beginning we were all, panic buying pasta and trying to figure out if we would run out of food.
Let me give some kind of context here. So first, COVID happens. There's kind of two failure modes associated with the supply chain. The first, I'm not even going to full screen this. The first is that you now have what effectively is a unavailability of labor. You're trying to immediately start to social distance. That effectively hamstrings your throughput capacity. You might have employees who are very concerned about how to stay safe in that environment. And so you effectively have to handicap your labor throughput. And then the second failure mode is that you now have a tidal wave of volume that needs to go out. And you've got people panic buying, people freaking out. People are basically making an assumption that this stuff is not going to be available and therefore buying loads of pasta or loads of whatever. The good news though was that those failure modes were not alien to us. So we've had labor shortages for years, especially go back 18, 19, like really hot economy. We actually rely pretty heavily on machine learning to figure out where to put stuff in the warehouse. And that affects a increase in labor productivity. And so we basically, the loss of the labor plus the good operational practices, some of which data science contributed to, others of which were just learned and refined by our operations team over years, really kind of allowed us to net them out. The other thing that we did was we intentionally simplified the orders. And so the objective of the supply chain under normal circumstances is to guarantee availability of your cornucopia of yogurt, so you can stand in the grocery store and gawk at, I want boysenberry, gluten-free, whatever. We together decided, forgive my French, but ain't nobody got time for that shit. We started changing up in conjunction with our customers and said, okay, you used to ship 5 items out. Now you're shipping 2. You used to want half this pallet. Now you're getting the full pallet. And it worked out well because they now have the demand to use that up downstream. And so this was very, very, very much by design. But the critical thing is that when you have a crisis like COVID, the work that you do before it matters the work that you do during it. And so take other failure modes that consumers may not know about. So take shrimp. Shrimp is a very heavily imported commodity into the United States. Basically, the Gulf is the only provider of shrimp in the U.S. and they're primarily distributed regionally. Most of the shrimp that we consume will come from Asia. And if you look at the rankings of the various exporters to the United States, it's been wildly gyrating for the last several years. So Thailand went down, India went up, Ecuador, this kind of upstart, started at number 7, and now they're number 2. This was actually due to a animal pandemic. Thailand, the primary supplier of shrimp to the U.S. market, was hit by something called the yellowhead virus. It's a distant cousin of the coronavirus. And so suddenly their exports to the U.S. are down 80%. We've had huge global warming induced squid shortages. I mean, global warming is definitely a thing. It's something that we monitor very closely, and it's just catastrophic effects on certain fisheries that we see in our data. And one of them was squid, calamari. And so in 2013, you had 118,000 tons come in. In 2019, we had 10% of that, less than 10% of that. And it was coming in during different times. And so these are things that happen when you are normally dependent on Mother Nature for all of your stuff and things that you're trying to hedge around. And so there's a working assumption in our industry that like you're just going to get kicked in the head. El Nino is going to take out a bunch of fruit, or some fishery is going to fail, or some pork virus, as recently in China, is going to take out 60% of the Chinese pork population. And so that's just normal. That's just normal for us relative to COVID. And so the net result of that is that we store a lot of inventories. And so there's just enormous quantities, like months of supply sitting upstream in certain freezer and refrigerated commodities. And that's really what we relied on. The difficulty was not whether the food was available, it was schlepping it and the relatively high demand. And in retrospect, it was actually about the size of Thanksgiving. And so these warehouses are what we refer to as our mega RDCs. They ship directly to retail distribution centers. You see this upswing in kind of mid-March to mid-April. That's COVID. But you see these huge upswings during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's normal. No one thinks twice about it. But the difference is you don't know when it's coming. So we didn't know exactly when it would happen. We didn't know exactly how big it would be. We didn't know exactly how long it would last. And so then it becomes an exercise in trying to put out fires.
What were some of the fires?
So some of the fires were that we had made the decision that we needed to decon certain facilities. And so how do you, like, we're not going to compromise worker safety. And so, but now you have to start bringing in product from other warehouses. Now you have to play musical chairs, as it were. Some of the failure modes were just that there was huge regional differences in panic buying. So this facility serves the Northeastern US. And I mean, so this is a 75% increase in their volume.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do with that? Like in their particular case, we employed a whole bunch of strategies, simplifying orders. The ops team at that particular site is just absolutely tremendous. And they had worked close with the customer on everything from how to simplify the orders to how to get the trucks to be on time so that they didn't have anyone standing around unutilized. On the flip side, this facility serves Los Angeles. The entirety of Los Angeles basically seemed to go, Instacart, yo, like
I'm fine.
Right.
I'll be fine.
Right. And so then it becomes an issue of how do you play whack-a-mole, as it were. And that's an operational question. You absolutely positively need the highest level skilled operators. I mean, it is a skill to manage a plant and schedule your labor and motivate people to make stuff happen when it needs to happen. But it's also a data question. We have developed over years the systems in place to be able to see all this stuff in real time. We can see automatic operational alerts of whether something's about to go sideways. We have a whole bunch of techniques for that, but we also have a whole bunch of infrastructure for it. And so...
Well, this is probably a good segue back to our topic of data science and AI. I mean, that was an incredible, I think most of us were alarmed about food and then were relieved that it didn't end up being a crisis. But I don't know how much of us realized that how much work was going on behind the scenes to keep it from being a crisis.